No, I have nothing compared to him. I just have a few notes. He has done,
Oh, come on now, Trey.
no, he's done blown me out.
Paper clips of this meeting now.
I wrote some things down, and I'm gonna go through, and then Rusty's got a few things to elaborate to this.
Y'all may get all back to you now.
Well, I'm gonna read most of mine, because I'm not as eloquent as he is. I don't wanna leave it out.
You're Steve, you're eloquent, that's nice to know.
No, now, we started out the same way as Ricky with a wish list of things we wanted, and our main thing was getting our filters rebuilt, and some pumps, and some other, of course, the tank was on there, but that's kind of a different department.
There's some stuff about the tank that we probably need
Yeah,
to-
yeah, we'll bring that up also. But the grit chamber was, and y'all know that, the grit chamber was not on my list. But I'm just gonna start by saying that I don't really have a problem with Mr. Warren engineering some of our projects, but if he's deemed best for the project, but I'm gonna have to agree with you the other night, I don't think he needs to be every project all of the time. It's not the best interest of the city. And well, we all know that now anyway, from what was already said, but just let me read through this. We've had 4 projects done that were engineered by Jerry or Mr. Warren, and we're having trouble with 3 of them. And the first one was rebuilding the filter media. We did get that done. Seems like the grit chamber was top priority to get done first, and we was gonna get whatever money was left to fix
Called the
things. Filter media rebuild.
Basically, the sand filter at the
Yes.
plant that the water goes through.
It's-
Ever so often, that stuff needs to be replaced
Yeah.
because it just becomes ineffective.
Yeah.
It had never been replaced.
In
It's
40
very-
years.
Yeah, it's, normally doesn't
Well,
last over,
almost 40.
yeah, normally
That
doesn't
was
last
definitely-
20.
Yeah, yeah.
But it
And
was-
that's a big expense.
It is, it's like 150,000 plus to
We
do
can't- we
that.
can't-
Was it done?
It was done.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying, that was my project, that was done, W&O's group led by Rick Medley did an awesome job.
W&O is, yeah.
We have not had any problems out of that,
When was that done?
That was done the first part of 2018.
It was completed then. It was
Yeah.
worked on for about
It took a few
6
weeks.
months or maybe 8 or 9 months total of 2007. It ended
Not the
in-
filters.
Okay, yeah.
The
I'm talking
filter-
about the whole project.
Oh, yeah, the whole project, yeah, the filters was a few weeks.
Just so we know, I think you're talking about these 2 projects on the page.
Well, all our money was grouped together with the tanks
It's
and
hard for us to
everything,
tell
so
what was what.
I don't really know how much was
But
spent
the
where.
project, the whole project that you're talking about is over 2 million. Well, no, I take that back.
That was including the tank and
Yeah,
everything.
$1,700,000, something like that.
So
They
it
came
was
back and requested more
150.
money.
It was
And they came back
150,
and-
between 150 and 200. I never did see the exact numbers on that, to rebuild those filters.
Oh, I know, this page just kind of is an overview of everything that they did.
See, we had
that we're paying
a
for
lot
right now.
grouped into one groups of
Yeah.
money.
It was kind of hard to tell. what
It was, I never did know
But now,
exactly.
you're talking about a grit chamber, isn't that something for a sewer?
That's coming up
Yeah,
next,
we'll-
yes,
okay.
we'll
yes.
get into that.
Yeah, I was just mentioning that the filter media was the one project that we were pleased with. We have no trouble with that.
Sure.
The second project would, of course, been the grit chamber, which I know we've worn you out with it, but it's just time to put it to rest.
Well, it's just
We
so-
know it was not the best option for what we did. It was designed for a wastewater plant.
So what does it actually, because I've got a picture.
A
You
grit
showed me a
chamber,
picture.
a grit chamber is basically a series of it's just a concrete structure that the water, it's got a pump in it, it circulates.
Okay.
Basically, it separates the mud from the solid sand-like rock stuff that settles to the bottom, and then that's pumped out and run through another device that separates it from the water, and it's supposed to come out like a rocky sand-like texture. But and the mud, we were initially told that this had to go in because this will take a load off the sewer plant. Because at that time, our clarifiers were connected to the sewer lines. So, and you know, that mud settles out of our water. So there is.
Told by who?
Is that-
Engineers.
Is this what we're talking about?
The
I
engineer.
think I took a picture
Yes.
one day.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
grit chamber.
So
We
that-
we
that
drain the
looks like a
clarifiers
lot.
down weekly, just,
We drain them for just
but
a
we
little
drain
while.
them twice a year completely.
Completely and wash them out.
So this is a
there's-
very expensive piece
And
of equipment.
we've been doing this, and Les has helped us, and Derek's helped us, and
all of
Well,
them.
nobody else
They
here,
bring the
but
wash truck up.
They used to bring the wash truck up there and help us wash those out, so they have all seen what's in this thing. There's a lot of mud, but there's not a lot of grit. And we tried from day one to explain that there's not enough grit in there to justify that kind of expense.
$500,000.
And it was ignored. It was ignored.
So-
I wouldn't say it was ignored. I actually got called in and shut down on it a few times.
I think this is what, the day I went up there, that's how
Yeah,
much. you
that's
had.
a year and a half's
We're
worth of
totally
grit. That's a
experts, Taylor.
55-gallon
So bad.
drum. I can put that in a
I'm so
5-gallon
mad.
bucket.
We paid $500,000.
That's
for
it.
that.
There's the grit right
And a
there.
year and a
That's a year
half
and
we
a half's
took out.
worth.
But see, the reason we told them it wasn't needed is we see that grit. When we wash it out, we've seen it. We know what's in there.
Yeah.
And he said, well, we've got to get that mud off the sewer plant. Well,
We could've done
okay,
it
we could
a
have done
different
that a
way.
different way, though. We could have done it and then used the rest of the money to maybe help upgrade the sewer plant.
They're
You know.
they're still getting the mud though.
Yeah, well, no, actually, the mud is actually now going out in that creek below the water plant.
They extended the permit.
We
We already had a
have a
permit to
discharge
discharge
permit.
backwash water down there.
We have a discharge permit to dump our backwash water,
So
and
the
he
bottom
tied this
line is-
line into that, so it would go out in the creek, and then he went through the state and updated our discharge permit so that it would cover that. However, when you discharge that kind of water into a creek, you have levels that we have to maintain, which created,
We do
we
monthly
have to do
tests.
monthly testing on it now, which our testing alone is about $1,200 a month. I mean, a year.
A year.
Just
How
for,
much-
just for the testing.
How should we be discharging it?
It should have went to the sewer line, the
That's
sewer
what
lines like it was designed to be done.
It was going to the sewer lines.
So just so we know, Teresa, so I'm clear for once and all.
Yes, ma'am.
Of this 1,700,000 almost.
That was-
500,000 was for a grit chamber that should not have been in the sewer plant and water plant.
Well-
It was designed for the
Their
sewer
design.
plant.
Yeah, I actually got an
Well-
email recently from the company and was up asking some questions, and I emailed him back and told him, didn't know if he was aware or not, but we were a water plant, but we continue to monitor it, and he didn't respond. Because
Okay.
every time we tell them we're a water plant, they said they're never
So,
put it water
just so we're
plants.
clear on that project, for the water plant and the tank and the grit chamber and everything, the engineering fees on that were 302,000. USD approved fees by their scale would have been 103,000. Just saying.
Okay.
So, anyway, that's interesting.
No, yeah, I mean,
That project should have never seen the light of day.
Yeah.
no.
It should have been shut down in the beginning. That's why, see, let me say this first. I've known Jerry my whole life. I like Jerry. And, I've got a lot of respect for Jerry. He's a self-made man. I do respect him a whole lot, and I have no problem with him engineering projects here. But we have no control when he's brought in, and probably for any engineer for that matter. We can't.
We found
can't-
a source of money before we found a need.
Yes.
Well, and even then though, like this grit chamber, he was told on day one, we didn't need it. It wouldn't help us. Oh, it'll help the sewer plant. Well, it did in a way. It took that mud off of them, but
That could have been done with a dry
that could have been
bed.
done with a drying bed or just a separator tank to let it settle in, and it could still been discharged into the creek. Or it could have been hooked back to the sewer lines and then all that money spent on the sewer plant to increase their
So we could
capacity.
use 500,000 for the
Right.
sewer or our water
Right.
lines or sewer.
And,
lines.
and when this was brought up, I mean, we actually was against this from the beginning.
We don't have a grit chamber at the
We-
sewer plant, y'all.
we were
don't
called-
have one.
Well,
We-
we
we were-
were there, anyone?
Well, we were told there wasn't room for it there, and
Yeah,
that's,
it wasn't
that's
room
when
for
I
it at
said
the-
the
at the
project should
place
have
it
been
should have been.
scrapped.
That's-
It should be at the end of the line, separating all the grit from the whole city.
Yes, all the grid, not
25%
just,
of our yearly budget.
Listen, after this went in and we upped our permit to dump it into the creek down there, I also went to Jerry and said, what are we gonna do? We're barely able to keep our chlorine levels and our aluminum levels low when our testing in that, where we're dumping it. I said, what are we gonna do when we add all this extra in there and our levels shoot up? And he goes, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. In other words, we'll do another project and fix that problem. So
So he can make more money.
well, that's the way I took it, but now I can't speak for him, so, but that's the way I took it. And every time we complained about this, we were immediately shut down,
Who shut you down?
the previous mayor.
Okay.
I mean, we were told he was the expert and to let it go. And I've actually received phone calls from Hydrodyne Systems.
What's Jerry's rating?
What's
His
his-
wastewater rating, his water rating, what's his rating? Does he have a, you guys get qualified, you guys get
Oh, he's
rated?
not
I
licensed
don't
that I
think he
know
has any
of.
kind of license.
No, he's not
No,
licensed.
he's not licensed
He's just an
either.
engineer.
Oh, so,
But-
you guys' rating doesn't count, you're not the experts.
Well,
It's-
what we would like
you
to
said a while
have,
ago, it's always been, oh, there's grant money for this, let's get that money. Instead of saying, do
do we need it?
we need, the
Does it help?
departments need to be involved in the needs before you go for the money.
Well,
Go ahead.
well, the grit chamber, I got a call from Hydrodyne Systems, who is the manufacturer of the grit chamber. They actually called me and asked me if I would speak to a potential customer about how effective it was. And I told the guy on the phone, I said, well, I'm not the best guy to ask about this. And he goes, why? And I said, well, I work at a water plant. And I said, we don't get much grit out of it. I said, it works perfectly fine. We just don't get much grit out of it, so I can't tell you how effective it would be in his system. And he said, oh, well, they're not designed to be put at a water plant. Then W&O, the contractors, came in to do the work. They set all their trailers up, brought all their equipment in. The supervisor stands beside of me and he said, what are y'all putting it up here for? And I said, that's what I've been asking. And he said, this will be the first time we have ever installed one at a water
What
plant.
year is this?
That was in 2017.
17 when it started, it was completed the first part of 18. Most all of our projects were completed the first part of the year in 2018.
Yeah, it was completed in about January.
Let me skip through some of my notes now, you done covered. No, I'm just kidding, no, you're good. Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, a couple months ago, I sat quietly while he made a very nice talk about, all he asked that he would be able to bring in the company rep to look this situation over. Well, he and I have talked about that several times for months, and I was in agreement with that. I've always told him to bring him in, but he's never been denied that, and I know y'all didn't know that, and that's all he wanted, just to bring them in.
Do you
Well,
bring him in?
it hasn't happened yet. That's been going on for, what, close to a year.
And we have the
Yeah.
ability up there now. Les and them installed us a hydrant, and we've got a hose system up there now. We can clean those things out anytime we want.
Yeah.
Anytime they'll set up a time to meet with us and do it and go over it,
Mhm.
we'll show them that there's no grit in there.
Well,
And
no, go ahead. No.
he also stood at that same meeting and said, well, and I know some of y'all remember this, he said, we don't know if they've got too little flow or too much flow, or, he basically shifted it off on us that we weren't operating it properly.
It has a start and
And
stop.
It does, it has a automatic, a valve opener, but, we set it at the recommended amounts by the manufacturer, and then when we drain the clarifiers, it's wide open. So there is no setting, it's wide open, so the mud will flow through.
Well, that was another thing. It was supposed to have 3 settings.
Yeah, it was
Because
supposed to be
we opened it a
preset, but
third of
we
the
didn't
way
get that.
on our weekly thing, and it was gonna be designed for it to be closed or fully open or a third of the way. And then when that got done, and we asked about that, and they was like, no, this wasn't designed to do that. So we had to figure out on our own what was gonna be a third of the way. And actually, those actuators we didn't know about.
Yeah, we got
That was an
actuators put
expensive-
in on a valve that we open once a week and then twice a year.
And that was probably an expensive
And-
project, and we didn't even know they were going in
They
until they
weren't
started
necessary.
pouring the concrete. That's actuators to control the drain valves, which we
How
had
much
been.
was that, you think?
I-
Don't read that out.
I don't really know, but I would say they were a pretty penny. We had just T-valves, that we did manually,
Could we
which.
find out
What,
how much it was?
I'm sure should be in the.
Invoices.
Invoices,
Should be.
yeah. See, I never really got invoices or anything.
And that was one that wasn't needed.
In my
Well,
opinion, it was, it's.
It
can use
makes it easier to open the valves for us. We open them so seldom, it's not a big deal.
We didn't ask for it. I
Yeah.
think it was an
We got
expense that
surprised
could have
with
been
that.
avoided.
We got surprised with those.
Because, like I said, we'd just done it the old-fashioned way with a T-bar so long, and it wasn't like we were doing it all the time anyway, once a week, so,
You
that
did
was
it once
just
a week.
a third of the way once a week, twice a year completely. So you're talking, the way it was 7 turns once a week and 21 turns. That's the way we counted it, because that was, well, so it wasn't like killing us, you know, so. I know I'm a girl, but. Okay. I'm just one of those. There you go. Yeah, yeah. Okay, let me get back to my notes here. I done lost my place. We've covered a lot of that, though. Alright. Well, and one thing I made note of too, Jerry and I have talked about it a lot. He knows my feelings about it, and I've told him several times that me and him's just gonna have to agree to disagree with this project, because I was never gonna agree that it was needed, and he's never gonna agree with me that, but I just can't see that we are getting a $500,000 worth of results out of it, because it's just not that much grit there. But I think I pretty much covered, I think y'all don't wanna hear no more about it.
So you said 4 projects, and did I miss
Yeah, that's what
one?
I was gonna move on.
Oh, go to the next-
out of
okay,
that
I'm
one.
sorry.
Yeah, we're
I
gonna.
thought you were almost done. I apologize.
No, I was just making sure I didn't leave anything out that I had written about that. But no, I'm good on that one. But one of the third projects was some new raw water pumps, which we definitely needed. But.
It's called.
Raw water pumps, the
Raw
pumps
water
at the river.
They're
that
the pumps at the river that
Mhm.
brings our raw water
Up to the
from the
plant.
bottom of the river up.
Mhm. And in the past, we have never had anything but oil-cooled pumps. And they start putting in water-cooled, and when questioned, and you can,
Yeah,
because you
he-
were the one that told that.
The day they were setting the pumps, I was down there, and I saw what was being put in, and I asked Jeff Oglesby, Jerry's right-hand man, I guess. I asked him, I said, why are you putting water-cooled pumps in? I said, we've used oil-cooled for 25 or 30 years with no problems. I didn't think you could put water-cooled in a raw intake. And the reason I say that is because you're sucking in muddy, silty water. And if you're using that water to cool your seals, it's throwing silt on your seals. So I asked that, and he said, oh, yes, you can now. You can now. So I let it go. I thought they knew what they were
Well,
talking about.
And at first, they mentioned flushing that line with river water, which was doing nothing but putting more grit in it. And then one day when he was on the phone with the company rep, he said, well, you're not set up like most of them are. And he said, what do you mean? He said, well, most everybody's set up with a fresh water line to keep them flushed with clean water. First we had heard about it, so that was kind of a design error from the
But
beginning.
she-
That's
she-
the $10,000.
So they put
$10,000 that we are just
water
spending.
cool on
They
She
water
put dirty water.
dirty, like river water.
Well,
Clean-
the pumps
clean
are
with
designed,
water.
the
Yeah.
pumps are designed to cool it with water. But if you put them in dirty water, they're blowing dirty water on your seals. And what she's not
Put
telling
mixed
you
gas in
is,
the oil.
what she's not telling you is the number 2 pump that they put in started blowing water within the first 3 months.
Mhm.
Okay? It's under warranty. The Southern Sales, the guys who supplied us with the stuff, come out and replace the seals. About 2 months later, we're blowing water again. So they come out and replace the seal. Now we're blowing water out of both pumps. So obviously the silt is eating the seals up. So, but at this point, nobody has ever said to us that this clear water line was an option. So we're about to run out of warranty, and we tell Jerry our problem. Jerry doesn't really get back with us for what, months?
Yeah, it's kind of one of them off and on things. I'm still checking on it.
And we didn't get it fixed. So I finally, one day at work, I just called the guy, because I had met him when he brought the pumps and stuff up, Brian, at Southern Sales. I called him on the phone and I said, these pumps are just tearing through these seals. And he said, I can come up and replace those seals for you, but he said, you're out of warranty now. And, they're $2,500 each. And we're blowing through about 2 or 3 a year at this rate.
Who made the call to put water cool versus oil?
Well, that was the
That was an
engineer's
engineer.
specification.
Mr. Warren.
2,500 times 3 a year blown.
Well, right now, but see, this is why, if you've been paying attention, Teresa's been coming in asking for money for the last 2 or 3 meetings, 2,000 here, 6,000 here.
It was 6,000 and 2. and
We're
then
at
another 2.
$10,000
How
right
much
now on
is- I
fixing
mean,
this project.
What's the liability for Warren Association? What
Well,
do
when
we
I-
have agreements as far as liability? Because I mean, this is
That's what I'm
Well,
wondering.
I mean,
well,
like,
when I first,
he should be paying for this stuff.
when
Well,
the warranty first went out and I spoke with Jeff and I told him what was going on, And he said, oh, no, you've been having trouble with this from the beginning. Jerry's not gonna accept that y'all are responsible for it. Well, kinda went back and forth there a few more months, and one night after the meeting, I asked him, I was like, so have you heard, where are we at with this? Have you heard anything else? And he went, well, I don't think. And I said, so you're saying the city's pretty much on their own here? And he said, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, if I sell an epidural tray and there's a bad reaction,
Mhm.
there's a bad reaction, a needle, something like that happens, first, we obviously take it back, no charge. We make sure they're covered, and if there was something worse than that,
Mhm.
that's what we have liability insurance for.
What-
What's going on with, does he have liability insurance as far as damages go? I mean,
Well, and then that night I asked him, he was gonna pull something up on his phone, wanna know if I wanted to draw up a design. And I was like, no,
Oh.
cause I thought that'll cost another 20,000.
See,
I was
Southern,
like-
Southern Sales
This
offered
is like
to.
a movie.
I
Southern-
was like,
Southern
I was
Sales-
like, well, our electrician has already spoken to the company rep, and we've got this problem figured out, where we
Yeah.
can fix it ourselves.
Southern Sales offered to come in and send their repair people in to fix a clean water line to these pumps. And see, that's when we found out about that was an option. And I asked them, I said, well, why wasn't that done on day one? I don't know. I'm sure it was never, it was overlooked somewhere.
how much
But-
was this project, the raw water pumps?
Those pumps are normally about $25,000 a piece,
Okay,
and we put in 2 pumps,
okay, so it's $50,000 project.
Roughly. But
roughly.
that included new impellers and everything, and I'm not
That
sure
was
what the.
complete,
yeah.
that was complete
Is
pump.
everything, installation, everything like
Mhm,
that? Okay.
mhm. I'm thinking now,
But-
again, we'd have to look at invoices
Yeah.
probably to,
And to your point about liability, this is the first time we've had an opportunity to talk about this and even consider liability, so that's not off the
We
table.
do need to consider liability, we need to
That's
find
not off
out.
the table.
Well, to date, we're at about roughly $10,000 on repairs just to put in the
Mhm.
clean water lines and replace those. We're not even replacing the seals, we're gonna rebuild our old
yeah,
ones and try
that's
to
what
make
I
them work
talked to
to
y'all
save
about the
some
other
money.
night.
Yeah, when
The
is
first
this done?
The first 6,000 I got was to put in the water lines, and he also cleaned up the electrical work that was left like a rat's nest down
Yeah.
there. And, he did all of that.
And that was necessary.
Yeah, it was.
And the reason being,
Mhm.
the electrical company that they hired to do the work tied all of our new variable feed drives on our pumps into the
The
old starters in the circuit boxes. Those are obsolete parts, they cannot be bought anymore. So if they go down, it's all gotta be rebuilt, and you're down until it's fixed.
And who was overseeing that?
Again, this is the
Everything.
engineer's project, because the variable feed drives came in with the new pumps.
Yes.
And that's
Well,
great.
Were they, was the,
That's
were the
project-
electrical people, were they, subbed under him?
Subcontract, yeah, it was what was that company?
I
It was a
couldn't tell you for sure. You'd have
subcontractor.
to get it from them.
That was.
Like, I
one-
don't know.
They were one of the subcontractors that I wasn't pleased with. That's
Yeah.
what-
But they tied it into some obsolete circuitry that was definitely gonna eventually cause us a major problem.
Well, they
So
could-
he corrected that. The guy we hired to fix this and put the water line in corrected that. And it
When-
looks
when-
neat and nice now.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
when
we'll
they-
be-
when
we'll
they
be able to
were-
buy parts for it cheap from now on.
So did
When
you
they were
hire
getting ready
someone
to
correct
leave.
it?
We did. That
When
was
they-
part of that $6,000.
So
When they were
that-
getting ready to leave, they left me with no controls. See, I control my river pumps from the plant. They couldn't figure out how to get it
The
working
telemetry,
up
they wasn't
there.
talking to each
The
other.
And so-
people that installed it?
Yeah,
And they left?
They left, and they said, well, you're just gonna have to go to the river the rest
Start
of
and
the
stop.
night and get this taken care of, and somebody will get in touch with you in the morning.
You
Well,
thought we had
nobody
problems.
showed up the next morning, and, so I called Jeff, and he called them off another job. They weren't even gonna come back
This is
and
so
see that
stressful.
and they weren't even gonna be back at that time, I don't think, until, to get me going. I was gonna have to go back and forth to the river to start and stop these pumps. Well, we kinda got come at 11 o'clock at night, he wouldn't care to go to the river at 11 o'clock at night by himself, I'm sure. And you mentioned the variable speeds, that was the, fourth project. And, a new problem that's come along with them, and on Jerry's behalf, he doesn't know this yet, but since they're out of warranty, I figured we was on our own on this one too. But, they've begun to overheat and kick our pumps off.
What-
So
Can you say what that project is one more time? I'm sorry.
variable speed drives,
A lot of people calls them VFDs.
It allows us to adjust the speed and gallons of pumping.
It basically regulates the hertz. It cuts the hertz down going to the motor so that you can actually run at any speed you want. The good thing about that is if we don't need as much water at a given time, we can cut them back and it saves on electricity too.
But now that
We
they're-
should have got an 7 to 8 or 9% decrease in our electric bills on that
Yeah.
by putting those in.
That's true. But now that we are overheating and it's kicking the pumps off, he went down there yesterday and opened them up and put a fan to keep them cool, so we don't know what kind of problem this is gonna cause us.
What it
How long
is,
have they, have those,
Our elec- what?
how long have they been in?
about a year and a half.
This is the same thing, but our electrician looked at them for us here just a few weeks ago. Mr. Cunningham, y'all know his name because he does a lot of stuff for us, and he says they're not designed properly. The control box is too small for the works.
Each pump has its own VFD.
Mhm.
And we have 2 cabinets mounted on the wall down there. Now, they were limited in space with what they can do here, because it's sort of cramped in there. We got a lot of stuff in that building. They have our big pump, our largest pump, has its own cabinet. We don't use that pump as much as the smaller pump, so we're not having at this point a problem with it at all. But there are 2 VFDs in the other cabinet. And when they're running, if, say we run for a 12-hour period, that cabinet on the outside will get up to, well, it's been measured at 120 degrees. So these things put off a lot of heat.
So I don't know
And
what kind of problem this is
It
gonna
has an
cause.
exhaust fan that sucks cool air in and it comes out the other end. We're looking at putting a second fan in and a second vent in to help, to keep it cool. It's been kicking off on us, and what it'll do, you don't know it. And
You smell
the
water
the
level.
way a water plant works, it works on gravity. You bring the water up to the top of the hill and it works its own way down. So we're pumping the proper amount of water in, and then all of a sudden that pump kicks off on you, and you don't know it unless you actually see it happen. Because all we have is one light that'll come on. And then next thing you'll know is you'll hear water running over the troughs where the water level has fell so low, you're getting in trouble of messing some other stuff up. But anyway, you have to stay on top of it, and it kicks off sometimes. The other night it kicked off 3 times on me overnight.
And so did the wrong ones get, the wrong variable
No,
speed drives?
we
get wrong,
think,
or
we
they're
think,
just bad ones?
we think what's wrong is there's 2 VFDs in a smaller cabinet. It's just not enough airspace. It's overheating.
Yeah, I think that's.
So what I've done now is I went down there and I propped the door open and put a fan blowing cooler air in there to try to see if that's if that solves the problem. We know we've got to just get more air in there too.
That's why I said I haven't even made Jerry aware of this when it's fairly new and they're out of,
Well, it's a year and a
What do you
half.
like-
well, it's out of warranty. I didn't know.
We should get intake air, the intake and, system, intake air, and then get a vent hood. kinda
Well,
thing.
see, what we've got
But
now is
it-
we have a
yeah.
small fan in it now, just
Did
like
you
a
know
computer
about that? Did
fan.
that-
It has a vent.
But we're gonna have to put more airflow through it. That's what's
Yeah,
gonna
I-
ultimately be.
Yeah.
But
How
that's
big
not
is the room?
It's the pump house down there. It's probably what?
15 by 20.
I don't seem that
Inside,
big, but
maybe.
anyway, it's
Not
Yeah.
much bigger than this room.
it's not even
No,
as big as this room.
It's a little smaller than this.
Yeah, it may be.
But we've
yeah.
also got a traveling screen in there, which is
Takes up half the room.
which sifts the big debris out of the river water, which takes up this corner.
Yeah.
So you guys think the solution is just more airflow, more?
I think
air?
so.
Well, we're gonna try that right
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Now-
hoping it's
now-
not
now
a
if-
situation
if-
where we gotta put another control box
If
in.
if the fan blowing on it does not solve the problem, then we're gonna have to look into an electrical problem.
Okay, so we should have, basically just, it might have needed to be installed elsewhere where there was more.
You can't.
No, it's gotta be
Yeah,
there.
it'll be
It's
right
gotta be
there.
there. I just think it was put in too small of boxes.
Or with insufficient airflow.
Mhm.
And which, look, I'm not blaming that on an engineer.
These are like
That's just
control
an
boxes
issue
that
that we gotta
sit.
deal
That's
with
an
maybe
issue to
coming
deal
up.
with.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay.
blaming that on anybody. I'm just.
Well, the boxes should have been bigger, I think. I'm not-
Well,
But that was the 4 projects that, as far as future projects, we don't have anything, future projects coming up that we're gonna need grants for. We may have some small projects.
well,
but-
well, it's
The
not really
control.
not really our project,
Well, the
but
tank.
there's one more thing, a project coming up that we need to be aware of. When we put the new tanks up, the big tank up on the hill, the one that's already in, that tank was very much needed for the
Mhm.
city, and we're happy with it. We like the way it works and stuff. There's one issue with it, and this was addressed during the blueprint stages of building it. now this may bore you to death here because this is water treatment stuff, but when you've got a tank, you've got to turn it over. Every 24 hours, you got to keep fresh water in there.
I think they know that.
Okay.
Because we done talk
All
about
right.
THMs.
All right. Well, the THM problem stems from the way your water circulates in that tank. And it was suggested on day one to put a mixer in that tank, just to keep that tank sturdy. But the engineers told us that wouldn't be necessary because the design they had designed would have a standpipe that was high. In other words, the water would come in up high and go out low and it would circulate itself. That sounds logical, and people who know tanks will say, yeah, that could work. However, he also knew on the day he told me that we were only going to have one line, one water line that was both intake and outtake, which is impossible to put a standpipe in because it comes in and goes out the same hole. So what we've got now is we've got an issue, and it's not rearing its head yet, but it could. The THMs, which is what we've been having trouble with, the trihalomethanes, they come from your water age. They grow faster in older water. When you bring water in at one level and take it out at the same level, you've got cool water right there. You know, it's going back and forth. But when the sun hits those tanks, it heats that water up, and the higher you get in the tank, the more that water temperature rises. When your water temperature is different in one area than it is in another, it stratifies, and it won't mix anymore. And that's the reason for a mixer. And see, they're putting in this tank at Turkey Creek. It's a small tank. Doesn't need a mixer, theoretically. But he needs at least that tall standpipe in it to help circulate.
And also, that is one reason we had a second opinion, because our supervisors had said we need an intake and an outflow,
Right.
just like you're talking
Yeah,
about.
we
Yeah.
already discussed
So
that.
we're gonna have another meeting to make sure that's in the design.
Well, see-
The second opinion also verified that.
Do we need a mixer in it then? Or is it too late to
What-
put a mixer in?
No, you
You
can
can
always
add
add
mixers.
one at a, you know, it'll cost a little more now.
If it looks
But-
like it's gonna be a problem, it'd have to be optional.
If our
to look at.
see, what makes this so important at Turkey Creek is we're selling that water directly to Cordell Hull Utility. And our THM levels in the city, our maximum contaminant level is .080. But when we sell to a customer, at the point of exchange, it has to be 60% of that. Otherwise, you're in violation with him. So our THMs, on average, are approaching the 60% mark. So if that tank is put in and doesn't mix properly and adds to this problem, we're gonna be in violation there. So that's something that we gotta watch and make sure that this is
And
done
again,
properly.
because y'all warned us up front about this, that's why we had the second opinion, and you verified, yes, you've gotta
Now-
have that.
now-
So it's gonna be in there, for sure.
We didn't get the standpipe in the big tank, and we can't say that it's actually contributing to THMs at this point. I
No,
can't-
since
I
that's
can't
local-
What's
prove
the
that.
big tank called again? That's where at? The big tank that
Oh,
needs.
The
the
city
back-
tank, the
just-
city
just the
tank
city.
on the
You
back.
guys call it the city.
Yeah,
tank.
there's
The
a
city,
city
we have a
tank.
city tank and a Turkey Creek tank.
And then the Turkey Creek's the one that we're gonna work on.
That's the
That's
new
We're
the one-
looking at, we need to
yes,
make sure.
That's
the
the
one
new
out on Turkey
project.
Creek Highway, yes.
Turkey Creek, that's the one though that we sell our water to our customer with, and if we go in violation there over that 60% mark, then they can come back on us, you know, and the state gets involved, so.
I'm glad you reinforced it, because we're gonna do that.
That's-
It may
that's,
cost us to add it, but we're gonna do it.
And see, what we do to, and this is just something that me and Teresa do on our big city tank. Because we're afraid of lack of circulation, every Friday, we drain the tank down, low. And then I come in Friday night and fill it all the way back up, and then I let it drain back down and do it again on Sunday. So once a week, we turn that thing over twice, just to try to help this, so.
It gets a decent turnover daily, just because we run between,
Unless it's stratified.
yeah, because we shut off 4-ish and start up at 11, so you drop down some, but on Fridays, we make sure we drop it all the way down. We get as low as we can without putting the city in jeopardy of getting too low in
So
water.
it
We have
sounds-
to be careful, because
sounds
if
like
we
we're-
get too low and you have a big fire,
Right.
Yeah,
we
And
might
it
be in a
sounds like-
but he
bind.
calls us.
It sounds like then we're having to lose some water.
We don't lose water. what we're doing is we just drop, we
just don't
run a
pump.
small risk
We
of
just let it
of him
drop.
having a major fire with
Yeah.
us with a 8-foot
So we're not
container, so.
actually.
No, we're not
getting-
wasting any water.
No,
We're
we're
just
not
not
wasting-
pumping and letting the
I know
tank
you
level
wouldn't.
get really
You're just
low.
not making new water.
Just not making new
We're
water.
just basically
yeah.
But
letting
if we had a mixer, we could cure that probably. But-
well, that would probably solve that
Yeah,
aspect.
still
of
wouldn't
it.
hurt to turn it over.
Uh, You can put a mixer in a tank
never-
like that. Like Steve said a while ago, we go to the expo every year.
Yeah.
And of course, there's people there selling their products. And there are portable mixers that can be added to pre-existing tanks.
More expensive though.
Well,
than if we
not,
done
it's
it
not,
with
it's
the
not,
other.
they actually have mixers, I think, in the, well, it is expensive. I'd say one for that one, we'd probably be looking at 25,000 to put it in. But that's maybe a project that, where Jerry was right, we look at down the road if it starts becoming an issue. See, we measure the THMs at 3 points in the city, and of course, we're having trouble at one of them.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
you
just
know.
that one. There.
It's a dead end line though, so we don't think that's tank related. But
Yeah.
every little bit in the tank would help that situation too.
Yeah, okay.
But that's basically our 4 projects. We didn't have too much, as much as you did. But just looking back, to avoid the costly errors that we have occurred, I just think it would be best if, like we said, just look at our needs first. Don't just look at, there's a grant out there for this, and let's do this.
And is
Because we're
there,
paying a lot of money back right now.
is there some way that when a project is starting out or being completed, that a department head can have a little bit of
Yes.
actual?
Yes.
Now, what I'm,
It should be.
what I'm saying is though, is if we, right now, if we said something in the past, it was ignored. But if you have to actually sign off on a project for it to move forward, you might get a little bit more respect from
So
the.
be assured
Let-
going forward, you'll be
engineering.
part of everything, all of you will, okay?
Let's
So-
start with this, identify a need. Why don't you all identify the need? Just saying.
Mhm.
I mean, y'all work there every day. I don't understand why someone else is coming in and identifying a need.
Yeah.
If
And we-
y'all need something identified,
Well, we
it
made
has
the
to-
wi-
it should start with you. It
Yeah.
shouldn't start with
Right.
me, it
Well,
should start with her. it
We
should
made
start
the
with
wish
engineer.
list, but that was
Start
kind
with
of.
you.
These low interest loans, this is the way it was explained to me, because when they said we were getting them, we come out and told them what would help us a lot. Because I don't care how smart you are or how much you know about water treatment or engineering, if you don't work in that plant, in that system, you don't know it
They're all
like the people
different.
that work there. And the way it was explained to me was, hey, we've got this grant for, $1.2 million. And I said, well, can we rebuild our filter media and can we do this? Oh, well, now, hold on a minute. All this money is earmarked. It can't be just used for willy-nilly. It has to be for what they had it approved for. And see, when you're not in on that part in the beginning, then you don't get what you need.
Can I ask y'all a question?
Sure.
In your opinion, I've counted 7 botch projects, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Third and Main, is that real? Is that needed?
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's a less,
Yes.
that'd be you?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So that's
But-
absolutely needed.
But we
then.
know now it can be done 150,000 or less.
Yeah.
I don't understand, I never understood on that to replace, basically, we're replacing about 1,000 feet of water line.
I don't think there is a water line there. They're putting.
there not
they're-
one there?
Yeah, they're putting
we're
in a
just putting it
brand
in.
new
Oh,
water line to
okay.
connect.
Yeah.
Okay, I misunderstood that then.
Okay.
And 2 hydrants.
Well, now that, okay, so that'd be you. Okay,
Yeah.
I wanna make sure. And then the same with Spring
That
Street,
is
is
a
that
need.
needed? Spring Street's
Yeah.
needed too?
I think that
Okay.
was more of a money issue there.
Yeah, yeah.
It was needed, but was it needed at that cost?
Well, we were talking about $750,000 as opposed to 200,000.
See, a water plant, but when a water plant's built or repaired or updated or whatever,
Well, I feel better
it
about
lasts
that
a
at
long
least.
time. The repairs will last long. We're looking long-term down the road. So when we see something up front that's gonna cause us a problem down the road, that's when we bring it up and say, well, shouldn't we do this? Because we're wanting to head off that stuff that's coming down the road, but that's often overlooked.
Well, wouldn't our priorities be the 40s lines and then the 70s lines? You know?
Well,
as
your
far as
older
age
part
goes?
of your lines is this, that side of town.
Yeah,
That's the older
that's all
part.
the, that's all the 40s
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
Been around longer.
And if we do qualify for these new loans that are coming out from TDEC, revolving loans, we can get, in the design and planning stage, 9% principal forgiveness, which means it's almost like a 10% grant that we're getting. And that would help us to find out
The
around town
90-10?
where we actually need these. We have experts in that area who can come and help us locate the lines that are needed most. And like we were saying the other night, if we can identify where those lines are and the water, get those done, then the pavement that several people have talked about can be done over that. So they are coming out specifically, TDEC, to help small rural areas like this with these new loans they're coming out with.
Is that Haslam plan or whatever he's been talking
Well,
about, the
it's
commitment
a
to
little
rural
bit of all of
areas?
that, but it's the state
Okay.
revolving fund. They've got planning, design stage, and then the construction stage. So they
I'm ready to go home.
specifically put it into two different phases, so we get the design right
Had a
first.
real bad day.
You have.
I'll just say, on our part, we're trying not to spend much money at the sewer plant or lift station. Our money needs to be focused on the collection system, the old pipelines.
It does.
And Les and Derek and the guys, we had about 2.5 inches of rain over the weekend, and if you count Monday and Tuesday, normally our flow would have jumped to 1.5 million, 1.6 million. We never got over 500 and something thousand. So by them going to the old trailer park down there where the walking track is, they plugged off some old lines. I mean, they're already on top of making us better, a lot better. But I would like for our money that we do have to focus on that, is get what's coming into the plant fixed. Because if you don't, once you build a new plant, you still got
That's right.
problems. You need to have all that fixed going in. But we're already a good ways up from where we were.
So would you say like, priorities being, not necessarily that we have, priorities being one, that river intake being one.
I have a meeting.
And
Like 10
then
minutes.
probably your tank lining,
Yeah.
two. Focusing on a future plan for a new sewer plant, but then our additional revenue, basically, our expenses being on Les's side on starting to replace some of these lines and getting those going. And would you say that'd be like a priority that y'all would agree upon as far as
So to
expenses?
speak, what I'm hearing Steve say is if we don't replace those lines, it doesn't do much good to even help with a new plant, because it's still gonna be coming in.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there are actually at least 2 engineers that y'all have worked with that are specialists in what they call I&I, infiltration, whatever that
You
stands for.
replace your lines before you build a sewer plant.
Yeah,
'cause
you
ain't
gotta
gonna no
do
good.
that.
Okay, so priority being replacing
The
lines
lines.
is what everyone's saying here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could normally get an inch of rain, a pretty good rain, and we go to over 1 million gallon a day. And like I say, we had right at 2 inches or 1.3 over the weekend, and I don't think we really got over 400,000.
So that means all that
500,000.
stuff is leaking,
Yeah.
basically.
A lot of places, like that old trailer park down there, they took out, put in the walking track. I don't think a lot of those sewer lines were capped.
I knew they wouldn't. I took them loose.
So you just got a lot of groundwater just running straight into the sewer lines, so
Okay, that's
a lot of
nasty.
that's the problem.
And
That's where your grit's coming
one
from.
more thing.
Put a grit chamber in
There's
Clay
an,
Park.
there's actually an engineer who, at no charge, came and helped Steve and Ricky when they had to do their 5-year plan to send it back, Mr. George Kurtz, and he's probably the specialist in this I&I lines for sewers, all the southeast. He redid it, all Chattanooga system back in the 80s, and it was so amazing what he did. That's a template that we now use in our ordinances throughout the state. And he has that he will make himself available if needed to help us find where the worst lines are in town. So we've got some really good engineers who are around here who specialize in all of this, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what we're saying. Let's reach out, like you're saying, and find out who's the best one to come in, whatever project it is.
We just want to thank you all for giving us an avenue to
Absolutely.
speak and tell you that.
Let's do this more.
This is,
Yes.
well, sure, I've always been for workshops, but this lets you know kind of our frustrations.
Sorry.
Well, we want to thank y'all for the job you're doing and for bringing this to our attention.
Yeah.
Thanks for the millions of dollars,
It's-
guys.
It's
Appreciate
time
that.
that, y'all are experts,
Well, I appreciate it.
yeah.
Appreciate
But
it.
if we don't know something, we'll find out who does know.
Yeah.
I mean, but just stopping that $1.25 million, that would have been spent. We weren't even able to stop things. I mean, that would have been spent.
That could replace some lines right there.
Well, can you also, if you see something, and you too, Mayor, if you see something that's coming down, just kind of somewhere out of wherever,
We have
let
to.
us,
Yeah.
let us know.
Yes.
Cause otherwise, I mean, it seems like, he's signing off on POs.
Well, and let me just bring one more thing to your attention while
I
we're
mean-
talking about, guys, gentlemen, if you look at this page here, the two bad applications we had from TDEC for this water line and sewer line we're talking about would have come to almost $750,000. On that $750,000, construction cost was that he projected would have been almost $600,000. His fees for both of those would have been almost $200,000, whereas if you go to USDA approved, it's only $50,000. So it's understandable he wanted those to continue, but
I
not
was
for
not a
us.
popular person
Not-
here
not
last
for-
year this time.
Well,
I was trying to stop
we're
this
talking
stuff.
about.
Right, and that's kind of where I'm at. I don't have a problem with Jerry personally at all, but,
He's been patting his pocket.
well,
It just
you know,
seems like it's
that's.
intimidating climate
I
to say
don't-
something, you know?
It's better to say it, yeah, but I don't get paid to make friends. I get paid to save the money and do the right thing. And so, I hadn't tried to offend anybody, but obviously there's some people that's been offended.
Well, they're not with us.
Teresa's been up there about 30 years, and
I
we
don't know
talked last year.
where that came from.
We're both supervisors, but she told me, she said, I don't feel like I even run my department anymore. And that's the
It
way
got to
I
that
got.
point.
We couldn't even run our department anymore, you know, you couldn't even get a bid, you couldn't do anything, and so this is just, we appreciate the mayor giving us this opportunity, y'all coming and listening, and we wanna go in a better direction for the city, and we're still trying to do the best and save all the money we can, you know, and I think that's what we're here
People, I mean,
for.
like, seriously, I mean, I'm not saying this, we're on TV or nothing, like,
But-
I mean, seriously, like your guys are going above and beyond, you're fixing some technical things that are way outside your realm, that shouldn't have to be fixing. I mean, thanks, I sincerely appreciate it, and if something needs to come up though, I mean, let us know. Let us know, just shoot us an email or call us, whatever, you know, like, raise the alarms. I mean, millions of dollars, right?
Just ask for a workshop or something.
Yeah, well, you know, when we were doing the budget, we talked about having this in August, and that's what we were looking forward
Yeah.
to. And then all of a sudden, it was just kinda out of the blue, the last council meeting, we were trying to, I'm sitting there going, where are we going with this? Trying to make a city engineer or something.
I'm really happy, thank you.
Just
Really
because
happy that
I
it
felt
got
like
through.
we needed to say what we
Yeah.
had to say now. You know, y'all can go forward and do whatever you want to, now I feel like it's off my chest, and y'all know, but.
Yeah.
We're just out for what's best for town of Carthage.
Well,
And we ain't heard from Les yet either.
I know.
It
It
hasn't been covered, huh?
Either farm or keep him.
Well, apparently, that's it's gonna be your department that we're gonna start putting
What?
money into.
Do what?
Apparently gonna be your department we're gonna start putting money into, so.
It's all come to
Basically,
you.
how do we start identifying these needs? What's the next
Well,
step?
I think that's part of the action plan that they all and the MTS have helped us put together.
Okay.
Working with Derek and Les on where are the worst lines in,
Yeah.
maybe in the collection
Okay.
system.
You still working on that?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
getting videos of lines and.
When do you think we can see that?
Well,
When do you
If-
think it's
if
gonna be done?
If I can interject now, guys, because
Sorry.
they are the experts, and we do have engineers, and that's part of this design plan. You get a qualified engineer first to come in and look at this. I mean, it's good that we are on top of it, but we've got to have a qualified engineer.
But all I got to say, whoever the engineer is, when they do this water line up here, there will not be no PVC pipe put in there.
No, we've already, it's
If
the
they think they
it's the
can do it
iron.
cheaper, cause they do that.
Yeah.
No, it's not
Well,
gonna happen.
even with.
What kind of pipe or?
Ductile iron, metal pipe.
Yeah. And
Iron, still doing iron?
the alternate estimate we got was with ductile iron, so
Yep.
it still was under 150,000 for that.
How long is iron pipe rated to last?
Oh my God, you got it, you're in town.
Well, but it ain't
We
last.
got something else, we got the
I mean,
1924 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got
But it's
the
probably
PVC
not.
ain't the way, I'm just saying, like, is there anything in there that can make it last longer, like, did they jacket it at all, or anything like that?
Your actual scale buildup helps it last longer
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
from your water, which
Makes it
builds up
bigger.
over time.
Okay,
And your pH levels and stuff control that,
yeah,
so.
If I ever take out an old piece, I'll let you look at it.
yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
I bet it is.
Yeah.
Well, thank y'all very much.
Joe, you got anything to add to this
Joe, you have a wish list?
frivolity?
I do.
Oh.
You got the two
The 2 new bays?
They're done building this thing down there?
Well, one's in his way and one's out here at the EMS building, the old EMS building's not secured. We stripped a lot of stuff off, put on the new ladder truck, but we've got some stuff missing because it's not secured. It's in '82 and '86. At some point, you're gonna have to look at replacing, and you're looking at least $250,000 a piece more. I've got an old ladder trailer that I didn't use, because I was working putting it inside. All the gauges froze and burst this last winter, and there's no point in me fixing it if I don't have somewhere inside to store it. And some other things, but that's the big stuff. Rest of it's $10,000 and under.
What, so two $250,000 pieces is what you're basically looking at? That's
At
major cost?
least.
And a bay to put 'em in.
38,900 and it was stripped, no equipment on it, no hose, no anything.
What kind of timeline are we looking at on it to have to?
Well, the old standard used to replace it after 20 years, and I've got a 1982 and a 1986.
Well, I ain't one of those older than me.
I seen people in burning buildings with them.
Yeah. I mean, so, anytime.
That's grant money, and that would be a good place to look for grant. AFG, we've had a couple $1 million worth of AFG grants, but we've never been successful on an apparatus grant. CDBG got the last one, and we were out 30-something thousand on 238,900 something. So that's a lot better than 240,000.
So we're looking at bays.
It'll be more than that now, because that's 2010.
So we get those, we already have bays for them, but we still need to,
I need 2 more bays.
you need 2 more bays for what's out there. But if we replace, we just take them out, put them in the new bay, put them in the current where they're at. We don't need 4 more bays.
Still gonna need
No,
base.
No, engine 5 is out there, that's one, that'd be the first one I'd replace.
Okay.
It's an '86, but it's front one, it's in.
And
really bad
we're
shape.
currently gonna be doing a bay for that.
Well, no, this is what we discussed.
We don't
Remember,
really-
I said there's 2 gentlemen that have a iron building, they build iron buildings.
Yeah.
Not iron, steel
Old one, for
buildings.
lack of a better term.
But they,
Metal pole.
they had already put together a design a couple of years back, and if we were to go forward, it was gonna be 75,000, I think, was their estimate for that. We're not sure if there's some money that might have been put aside, we're looking for that. Les seems to think it came out of their budget.
I remember it's 40,000 come out of my budget
Yeah,
for it.
but we can't.
But it's still there somewhere.
We
I
can't
don't know
quite
where it's
find
at.
where it is yet, so
Yeah.
I didn't
we're
get
working
it.
on that.
Yeah,
so.
it was
But,
talked
but,
about.
also, I've put out the word, because this is a need for a grant for this with several people, so we'll see what comes out of that. Speaking of which, I just got reminded, I got a certified letter this afternoon, from our grant writer, and she has decided to terminate contract or whatever you call it with us as of August 16th. Now, I have contacted Upper Cumberland District, Development District, who, because we pay out the kazoo to be a member of that, they provide free grant writers. So they have said they'll be glad to step in and help with anything that's needed for our facade grant or any of the other grants, because these are all professionals who've been doing it for years, and they won't charge us coming in to do this. If there's any commission left, they would, of course, take part of that commission if they take it forward, but they don't charge us because we're members to come in and
So
help with
free
this.
ones have always been available?
They get
They get
paid,
paid
they get
when
the
they get the
grant. It's
grant.
built in the
Mm,
grant.
Yeah, but they don't charge per hour like
Right,
we're charged
right.
with a private grant writer. So they've already said, I've talked to them today, and they said whatever we need to get help with it, they'll be glad to help, so.
They've never been successful on one of ours.
Well,
Yeah,
this is
I'm
just,
sure there's been
this
others.
is just to finish out what we already have.
Well,
They
I've
would
applied
sell.
for grants for us before, and they've never been
Yeah.
successful.
Well, sometimes it's not easy.
Will they finish
No,
out
it's
the?
a
Yeah,
competitive
yeah, but
Facade.
all I'm saying is, we don't have to hire them for anything else, but they can step in for free and finish this. Also, there are 3 other grant writers who just stopped by to introduce themselves and be interviewed, and Jennifer met at least one of them, very charming lady that does a lot of grants all over this area. I've been in all these mayors' meetings and stuff, they've given me names of 4 other grant writers that they all work, so there's an abundance of grant writers out there.
Is the grant writer and the grant administrator, sorry for speaking up, is the grant writer and the grant administrator, does it have to be the same person? Because those seem to be separate skills
Well,
and maybe have different,
Yeah,
what
it
I'm about to
depends,
ask.
it
different
depends on the
skill
grant.
sets that we've seen.
It depends on the grant.
So we can we do it like we're looking at doing it with the engineer, see different, look at different grant writers, have different grant writers go through
Okay, in
things?
the, in the case of filling these out, I think we would be probably well served at least with one of these to use USDD, because, UCDD, because it's gonna be free, but yes, we can talk to the other grant writers. Some grant writers like engineers, specialize in certain things.
Yeah.
Some grant writers don't wanna do facades.
Well, maybe we can look at,
Some grant
some-
writers do, well, let's just let's take this first and get this off.
Yeah.
And then we don't need grants right now, so when we need new grants, then we can discuss that. In the case of these loans from TDEC, no, we don't use a grant writer for that, that's a straight out loan. So it depends on what the need is.
What I'm
And
asking.
there's about a jillion different grants out there that we can go for.
What I was gonna ask you, if that's okay, is can we maybe look for possible grant writers that have had experience in getting grants for some of these fire trucks? And
I have.
There's one in Overton County that has had a phenomenal success.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I put out the word for some of those too. And
Okay.
also for our day, to see if we can
Okay.
get, so, again, we're doing it the right way. We've identified a need. We'll put out the word to, the proper grant writer in this case, because it's not an engineer. And we've got an estimate of cost, so that kind of helps us. If we can just go by this little cheat chart on the back, I think we'll be okay in the future, because we're gonna identify our needs, like everybody said here.
As far as the bays, Jackson County they had a real good success. I don't know who wrote it, but they got a grant to build 2 new fire stations.
I do know, it's a lady named Faye Leonard, and she's one
Oh,
of the.
it's Faye?
ones-
Okay.
yeah, she's one of the ones that stopped.
I knew
by
she
there.
did a lot of water lines. Okay, I know Faye well.
She's
worked with her?
she's very
Up in
good.
Jackson County?
It was Rhonda Leonard's mother-in-law.
Oh, okay.
And then there's another woman that several of them use, Amanda Maynard is their last name. There's 3 or 4 that have been suggested, but Faye, we met her and she's wonderful.
Oh, she is.
Yeah, yeah. So I've got to call into her to see if she can help give some ideas for these 2. So we're in good hands. And we'll finish out all of these, and we're very close to the solid grant to finishing.
Excellent.
Okay.
Man, that's like-
Here's a copy of her letter for everybody.
She's sent it out, or I got it.
Oh, you did? Well, okay, you know already then.
Yeah, she's sent it.
I need to catch
Okay.
up on my emails.
All right.
Three.
I don't know where
I'm
they
the
came
last
from.
to know
Tracy
anything
sent it,
last
but, you know,
time. Here you go.
Started crying and moaning and.
Okay, well, I guess we can take this back.
You're a horrible person.
Terrible. We're terrible people.
Terrible, but